every year, we do, once a year, a special seminar. And the seminar started 9 years ago. Is that correct? No. Is this the 9th year? This is the 9th year we're doing this. And it's turned out to be an excellent part of our regular monthly seminar program for the Center for Indic Studies. This was the brainchild of our brainchild, Pandit Ramadeen Ramsamujh is a member of the Center for Indic Studies and runs the 3R Foundation and is very involved with education and has an education model. And he's been a speaker also for our series to talk about his education model. He set up 9 years ago with the Center for Indic Studies a special lectureship that we do annually to honor the memory of his father, Acharya Ramsamujh Iyer. The lectureship has brought people from many places to be named our distinguished lecturer for the ARA Distinguished Speaker Lecture every year. We are very pleased that this has continued and grown so much over the 9 years that we've been doing this. So I would like now to introduce the brainchild, our own Pandit Ramadeen Ramsamujh, who will then introduce and describe briefly the lecture series that we have invited Dr. Kirk Megu to be our distinguished speaker for. So, without further ado, Pandit Ramadeen.
Warm blessings to all of you, students of Jerry. Before I begin to talk about Dr. Megu, I want to recognize in this audience my mom, who is from Trinidad, and she is now here. So I would like you all to welcome her to this lecture. It is her husband, my father, whom this particular lecture series is dedicated to. This goes a very long way, and we, through the Center for Indic Studies, have been trying to explore the knowledge and science of ancient India, and that's why the center was known as the Center for Indic Studies, because it goes to the root of the Saraswati civilization. We have in our midst Dr. Kirk Megu, who has been doing some research. Since we, born in Trinidad and Tobago, come from an Indian heritage that left India before independence, that is now, 170 years away from India. The tradition of Indic studies have continued since then, 1845, until now, in a very organic way. And so, Dr. Kirk is going to let you know about that. He's from Trinidad. He used to be a professor at the University of the West Indies. His passion is transforming people in an organic way, whether it be through economics, whether it be through business, whether it be through political science. Actually, he's the political leader of a party that names itself DNA in Trinidad and Tobago, and he has contested the election at one point in time. But politics is his passion, but economics and organically transforming young people is what his passion is about. He has been a senator in Trinidad and Tobago. He has spoken to the House of Commons in England. He has got lots of projects. He has been associated with UNESCO. He has been associated with UNICEF in doing a lot of things for people and children in the world. If I sit here, the whole lecture time will disappear talking about Kirk. We have grown together now with same ideas, same ambitions, which we want to transform, and his attraction to me, as he told me today, while we were coming from Boston, because he was very much interested in visiting the Boston Tea Party, told me today that his attraction to me is the SALT school model for transforming education. I want Kirk, and I want you to know who he is through what he has to say. I invite and welcome Dr. Kirk Megu to the University of Massachusetts, to the Center for Indic Studies, and to you all. God bless. Here I present to you Dr. Kirk Megu.
Thank you very much for that very kind and generous introduction. I'd like to thank the Center for Indic Studies for inviting me to be the distinguished speaker today. It's a great honor. I'd like to thank the students of Professor Saltham's class for coming out today, and the university community, the wider community, for attending. It's very important to have an audience to speak to, although I have spoken to almost nobody, and that never stops me. This is my first time in Dartmouth and Massachusetts in general. It's historically very fascinating for me, given the extensive and the crucial links to both the West Indies and India, or East India, both of which are my heritage. Very fascinating today. I won't get into what we did earlier, but very stimulating. But what I'm here to talk about right now is a topic I decided to speak on after engaging in many informal discussions with Pandit Ram Samud. And it's called Manifesting the Ancient Saraswati Civilization in the Americas, the Importance of Trinidad and the Southern Caribbean. As Pandit Ram Samud suggested, it's sort of a meeting of my ideas and his ideas, and how both of our agendas meet. And I think it's important, given this opportunity, to speak with you, to introduce and spread these ideas, which I think are very important. Right. The manifestations of ancient Indic civilization, from meditation to Ayurveda to yoga to Hindu and Buddhist philosophy to Indian cuisine, have become more and more a part of daily life, consciousness, and practice in the Americas. People of Indian origin, operating from and in the USA, have largely been seen as central to spreading these Indic practices. Swami Vivekananda, Srila Prabhupada, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, Sri Chinmoy, Deepak Chopra, and others. However, and I'm summarizing the argument here, however, despite Indic practices taking hold here in the Americas, I argue that it is on shaky ground. Faddism, cultism, trendiness, and its rootedness in the oppositional counterculture and now mainstream consumer culture fundamentally undermine the essence of ancient Saraswati civilization. For Indic culture to be more sustainable in the Americas, it needs to be more organically rooted and enmeshed. For a number of reasons, I don't think this is likely to happen in the United States, outside of peculiar localities. Indic philosophy and practice in the Americas are arguably most firmly rooted and authentically manifested in the countries of the Southern Caribbean, particularly the island of Trinidad, from which Acharya Ram Samuj emerged, his Dharmapatni, his son, myself, after whom this annual lecture series in the United States is named. In order to grow Indic culture in the Americas more sustainably and organically, the Southern Caribbean region of the Americas, especially Trinidad, needs to have its vital role more explicitly acknowledged. More collaboration is needed for the firmer rooting and spread of Indic culture to be realized. So let's take as a starting point the ancient Saraswati civilization. In this lecture, I differentiate between the ancient Saraswati civilization and Hinduism. The ancient Saraswati civilization refers to the civilization whose ruins have been found at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. At Mohenjo-daro and Harappa in the northwest of India and present-day Pakistan. It also includes several cities that are now underwater on the coast of modern India. This is one of the great civilizations of world history, which, together with Mesopotamia and Egypt, formed the core of the world system that continues unbroken to this day, in which Europe only joined in the 16th century and America in the 18th. The Saraswati civilization was the largest of these civilizations. Some believe, and I believe there is compelling evidence, that this ancient civilization spread all the way to Western Asia, East Africa, and Southeast Asia. Even in Europe, the ancient Indo-Aryan culture has left its traces. The names of the days of the week, the Greco-Roman pantheon of gods and goddesses, the calculations for celebrating Easter and Lent, etc., all hark back to those ancient Indo-Aryan roots. It has been speculated that the ancient Saraswati civilization is many thousands of years older than modern scholarship will concede, and that it was in essence a maritime civilization, spreading as far as the Americas. Indeed, the similarities and parallels that have been found between the ancient American civilizations and Indic civilizations are so striking that it is difficult for many to escape such a conclusion. The ancient worldview, the habitus, as Pierre Bourdieu calls it, the philosophical outlook, the scientific and technological culture, the spiritual command of that civilization are almost completely lost to us. To be clear, I believe that what existed then is superior to what exists now, and that this represents a tragic loss. I do not possess a modernist, progressivist, liberal worldview, which is basically taken for granted in the modern West, of which the Americas are a part. In particular, in the realm of astronomy, mathematics, architecture, urban planning, the understanding and manipulation of space-time, the understanding of the very small, the very large, and the very subtle, and the interaction between the physical and metaphysical realms. We are intellectual cripples compared to the ancients. As a Nietzschean side note, the morality which emerges from such a different intellectual and spiritual world would be barely comprehensible to us. What we know of as Hinduism today is not a faithful or accurate manifestation of the ancient Saraswati or Indic civilization. Much knowledge and skill has been lost. The context is completely changed. The people of the Indus Valley today cannot rebuild the civilization there. Indeed, the people there may be genetically quite different, even of a different stock. However, the people of India carry on many traditions and fragments of the Saraswati civilization, and they are the closest link to that ancient Indic culture. The situation is similar to what Alasdair MacIntyre describes about the modern West's relationship to the ancient Greeks. There's undoubtedly a historical link between Europe and ancient Greece. But what survives may be quite distorted or fundamentally misunderstood by intellectuals, the authorities, and even the contemporary custodians of the tradition. The same may be true of Hinduism and the ancient Saraswati civilization. The mysteries of the ancient Saraswati civilization, I believe, are preserved in the physical artifacts, literature, customs, and oral traditions which are still fastidiously maintained, even if not always understood, by contemporary Hindus, especially, but not only, in India. I argue that the ancient Saraswati civilization exists in these fragments, both physical and cultural, like a dormant seed that survives drought in the desert for years, waiting for the water to release its energy. It may very well be possible to recover, revive, and restart at least some aspects of the ancient Saraswati civilization in the Americas, and even in India. However, this would require a fuller understanding of the existing potential in this hemisphere. So, I just want to briefly talk about Indic culture in the Americas, the USA. The United States is without doubt the most important country in the Americas, economically, politically, and culturally. Indic philosophy had been introduced to the United States, probably originating with Ralph Waldo Emerson, who founded the literary movement Transcendentalism, which included Henry David Thoreau, who later influenced Gandhi, and Walt Whitman. I only recently discovered that even the Boston elite were called the Boston Brahmins. I didn't know that. I guess it's common knowledge here, but I didn't know that. And the connection with India, the Boston Tea Party, for example, was a revolt against the East India Company. That's crucial to all of that. So that's very much part of it. And importantly, another date is in 1893, when Swami Vivekananda gave his famous speech at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago and lectured in major cities of the US Northeast. But I'd say it's really in the 1950s, however, that Buddhism and Hinduism started to become popular in the largely oppositional and disruptive American counterculture. By the late 1960s, personalities like Ram Dass were prominent. Yoga and meditation started to become widespread, often tied into the hippie and drug culture, in a direct line of ancestry coming from the beatniks, Ginsberg, and so forth. Srila Prabhupada started to become more established, but at the same time, his International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, gained something of a bad reputation in mainstream America as a cult and became known as the Hare Krishnas. People made fun of it all the time in movies and things like that.